Hey guys, I'm going to explain to you how to do contextualization today. I think contextualization is one of the easier points to get on the paper. And one of the nice things about it is a lot of students really struggle with how do they start their paper. I see a lot of weak openings that ask rhetorical questions. Have you ever wondered why America's been this way? We don't do rhetorical questions anymore. I'm going to give you a foolproof way to make sure that you get the contextualization point on your paper. So let's first start with just what contextualization is. So contextualization is where you need to get your audience up to speed about what you are talking about. So it's introducing to your audience background information about your topic. Essentially what we're trying to do is narrow down where in history we're talking about. If we think about history as this like 5 to 7,000 year written thing, what specific time period are you talking about? And what specific information from that time period does your audience need to have leading up to it? Think about it this way. Let's say that a teacher comes up and sees two people fighting. As soon as the fight's over and the teachers and administrators are able to separate the students, what we need to start to gather is contextualization. What happened leading up to this event to cause for this event to take place? TV shows and movies do contextualization all the time. Probably the most famous example of contextualization in a movie is in the Star Wars movies. You see the opening crawl, which is that yellow lettering that I have on the PowerPoint. They're getting you up to speed. Here's what's been going on in this universe, and here's where we're picking up on the action. I sometimes watch Real Housewives with my wife. It is a part of love that I never knew until he got married. And Real Housewives, to keep you up with the drama, they have like a previously on episode where they kind of show little snippets from older episodes, letting you know kind of background information. So once the drama unfolds on the show, you won't be lost. This is what we're doing for our paper. We're trying to reveal what the conflict or what the situation is leading into the paper so we have a little background information. So that's what contextualization is. How do we do it in the paper? It is the first thing that you will write in the paper. It should be the first thing always. I see, this should not change. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If it's not the first paragraph, you don't get the point. So it cannot be information from the documents. The documents are going to be about the topic. Again, we're trying to talk about what took place before the topic. So therefore, it needs to come from your own brain. Best place to pull it from is going to be your notes. Now, it needs to be 4 independent thoughts, which I always like to think about as 4 independent sentences. But there are some people who do this kind of as a two-parter. They just introduce the thought in one and they kind of define the thought in the other. So the sentencing, I don't really want for you to get too in your head about. Sometimes it's 4 sentences, sometimes it's more than 4 sentences, but it needs to be at least 4 sentences. 4 independent thoughts leading up to describe the situation that's taking place. The 5th sentence or the 5th thought needs to cover how what we've talked about relates to the prompt or to the thesis. You don't want to leave your audience with just this very, very abrupt, hey, here's what's going on, and then here's my paragraph, or here's my paper, here's my thesis. No, you kind of want to connect, hey, here's what's happened, and then this is how it relates to what's going on in the thesis that you're going to see. And then the final part of your opening paragraph needs to be your thesis. It should be the last thing that I see in your opening paragraph. So we're going to do an example. And let's say that the prompt was, what caused for President Trump to lose the 2020 election? Now, I'm going to use 2 different examples from this because you're going to see 2 different types of contextualization, both of which work. All right. So example 1, I have my 4 independent thoughts. I've labeled them in different colors just so you can clearly see it. I say that Donald Trump surprised the world by winning the election in 2016. So I start my contextualization just 4 years before my event. This is immediate contextualization. Here's kind of what immediately happened. Because the big question with contextualization is, how far back can we go? Sometimes you can go back 100 years if you want to. I'm only going back 4. I say that he ran on a common man campaign that was catered towards uneducated white people who liked that he was a White House outsider. While in office, he did deliver on most of his campaign promises, including building a border wall, banning immigrants from Muslim-majority countries, and lowering taxes. His administration was known for inaccuracies and being hostile towards media members. So these four independent things are just kind of giving us contextualization about who President Trump was, all right, as a president. Note that in this, I have not started my argument yet at all. You should not be starting your argument. I should not be explaining why President Trump lost the 2020 election with this information. All I'm trying to do is build up knowledge for my readers so that they can have a better understanding of the topic that we're talking about. This is my connecting sentence, the black sentence. His tactics increased the political division, and I think it should be in the country, and caused for moderates to question if his leadership style was good for the country overall. So this is now me starting to connect, hey, all this stuff right here, just so you guys know, it did lead to an increase in political division, and moderates did begin to question him because of this stuff right here, which then would naturally lead into my thesis, which my thesis is President Trump is going to lose the 2020 election due to a historic turnout, lack of public empathy, and a moderate Democrat candidate. All right. So again, four sentences that kind of lead up to that develop who President Trump was, a connecting sentence, and then a thesis. Here is one more example. All right. This one starts with the end of the Cold War. So the first one started in 2016. This one's going to go way further back. I'm going to try to cover about 30 years, 40 years of political history right here in four sentences. Say political division had been rising in the United States since the end of the Cold War. In the 1990s, President Clinton faced a Congress that was controlled by a Republican Congress that led to more division, most notably a partisan divide and impeachment trial. This division would continue to form as President Bush refused to pull out of a controversial Middle Eastern war, which led to a supermajority of Democrats under President Obama that caused for Democrats to push through a lot of their agenda beginning in the 2010s. However, this division reached its highest levels under President Trump by being openly hostile to people that disliked him and spreading false information. Again, four different sentences, but instead of me covering 4 years, I've now covered 30 years. So you can do either. You can go through like more of an immediacy of what led up to it, or you can kind of go long term. How far back can we go? Ultimately, the last two sentences are mainly the same though. I connect all this by saying that this increase in political division caused for moderates to question his leadership, which became even more worse under COVID-19 and protest of racial discrimination. And then my thesis is the same exact. So that's contextualization. Understand, if you guys get contextualization correct right here, this opening paragraph part, this connecting piece, and you have a thesis, that's going to give you a great start to this paper. Usually I read the first paragraph, I can tell, is this an A paper, is this a C paper, or is this paper going to fail? Because if you don't get contextualization right, some of the harder parts of the paper I think are going to be much, much more difficult. So this is contextualization.